If you clicked on this video, you probably value your health and know how important it is to get quality sleep. But what might be less understood is what good sleep actually looks like. You might think it's getting 8 hours, but it's not. There's more to achieving high-quality sleep than just its duration. In fact, when you're sleeping, you experience what researchers have categorized as 5 distinct sleep stages, all different and all important. These stages include the rapid eye movement, also called the REM stage, which you might have heard of already, as well as other stages that might be less familiar like N1, N2, and N3. So what goes on in each of these sleep phases? Well, one key difference is the frequency of electrical signals your brain emits. Allow me to explain this in more detail, so you have a better understanding of quality sleep that you can use to improve your health today. To better understand your sleep, we have to zoom out slightly. Allow me to explain. One key concept to understand is sleep architecture. It defines the structural pattern of sleep stages across the night. According to the Sleep Foundation, a typical adult night consists of 4 to 6 continuous cycles, with each cycle lasting 90 to 110 minutes. These cycles are not uniform. The earlier portion of the night is heavily weighted towards slow-wave deep sleep, while the later cycles are dominated by rapid eye movement or REM sleep. I'll explain what slow-wave deep sleep means in a moment, but the point is that the percentages you see on most sleep reports are typically averages. What you should know is that actual stage distributions vary significantly based on your age, current sleep debt, medical conditions, and external factors like alcohol consumption or sleep fragmentation. Baseline metrics from the Cleveland Clinic indicate that structural variation is normal, meaning a perfect static sleep cycle does not exist in practice. Now, understanding these sleeping patterns gets interesting when you look at what actually occurs in each one. You see, clinical sleep staging relies on the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, or AASM, scoring manual. The AASM defines 5 distinct stages: stage W for wakefulness, N1, N2, and N3 for non-REM sleep, and stage R for REM sleep. Stage N3 is what we commonly call slow-wave deep sleep. It is the most physically restorative period where the body repairs tissue and the brain clears metabolic waste. The term slow wave comes from the fact that your brain emits these electrical signals at low frequencies, typically 0.5 to 4 Hz. For comparison, your brain waves are at a much higher frequency when you are awake, about 12 to 30 times higher. Now, in an accredited sleep lab, technicians score your sleep in 30-second epochs using a clinical sleep diagnostic test called polysomnography, or PSG. According to the American Thoracic Society, polysomnography requires 3 core signals for staging. These are electroencephalography, or EEG, to measure brain waves, electroculography to track eye movements, and electromyography to monitor chin muscle tone. Now, let's walk through each stage carefully so you develop a better understanding of what's happening at each cycle. It begins before you even fall asleep, starting with the baseline of wakefulness. Stage W is scored when a 30-second epoch shows primarily wake features. According to the AASM scoring manual, a relaxed, eyes-closed wake state produces a posterior dominant alpha rhythm on an EEG, cycling at 8 to 13 Hz over the occipital region. Wake epochs also display high chin muscle tone, rapid eye blinks, and fast beta activity. Stage W is not included in your total sleep time. Instead, it is tracked as sleep latency, which is the time it takes to fall asleep and wake after sleep onset, or WASO. The American Thoracic Society notes that frequent returns to stage W fragment your sleep architecture, high WASO, directly reduces your overall sleep efficiency and restricts the time available for restorative deep sleep and REM. Once the alpha rhythm drops away, the brain enters the next and first true stage of sleep. Stage N1 represents the lightest stage of non-REM sleep and serves as the transition from wakefulness. The AASM scoring manual dictates that N1 is scored when the wakeful alpha rhythm is replaced by low amplitude, mixed frequency EEG activity for more than half of the epoch. During this stage, slow rolling eye movements often appear, and while chin muscle tone drops from wake levels, it remains present. The Sleep Foundation defines N1 as a brief gateway stage that is easily disrupted by environmental noise or internal arousals. In a healthy adult, N1 comprises only about 5% of total sleep time. If an individual experiences frequent arousals due to conditions like sleep apnea, The proportion of N1 sharply increases as the brain repeatedly resets to this light transitional state. If undisturbed, the brain quickly progresses into the most abundant stage of the night. Stage N2 is a deeper, highly stable, non-REM stage that makes up the bulk of a typical night. According to the AASM scoring manual, an epoch is scored as N2 when it contains sleep spindles, which are brief 11 to 16 Hz bursts of brain activity, or K-complexes, which are sharp negative wave deflections followed by positive ones. These mechanisms actively protect sleep by suppressing responses to outside stimuli. The Sleep Foundation notes that N2 accounts for roughly 50% of total sleep time in adults. This stage is associated with consolidated continuous sleep, lowered heart rate, and drops in core body temperature. As the brain further disconnects from the outside environment, it drops into the most physically restorative phase of the cycle. Stage N3 is the deepest stage of non-REM sleep, universally known as slow wave or deep sleep. The AASM criteria dictate that N3 is scored when at least 20% of an epoch contains slow wave activity. These waves must oscillate between 0.5 and 2 Hz and reach a peak-to-peak amplitude of at least 75 microvolts in frontal brain regions. This stage carries the highest arousal threshold, meaning it is incredibly difficult to wake someone from N3. The Sleep Foundation and the Cleveland Clinic emphasize that N3 is critical for physical restoration, tissue repair, and growth hormone release. It is heavily concentrated in the first third of the night and typically accounts for 15 to 25% of total sleep time in healthy adults. Following these deep non-REM stages, the brain shifts gears entirely into a highly active state. Stage R, or REM sleep, is characterized by a paradoxical mix of intense brain activity and total bodily paralysis. The AASM scoring manual defines REM through a triad of clinical markers. These include a low-amplitude, mixed-frequency EEG that resembles wakefulness, definitive rapid eye movements captured by electroocculography, and near-complete loss of chin muscle tone known as atonia. This atonia prevents you from physically acting out your dreams. The Sleep Foundation reports that REM is vital for emotional regulation and memory consolidation. REM episodes typically comprise 20 to 25% of adult sleep time and grow progressively longer in the cycles occurring closer to morning. But remember, these sleep stages don't happen in this exact order. In fact, the National Heart, Lung and Blood Institute notes that you typically will follow a sleep cycle order of WN1, then N2, N3, then N2 again, followed by REM sleep. Additionally, they note that a single sleep cycle typically lasts 80 to 100 minutes, so you usually have 4 to 6 of these cycles before waking up. But now, let's go a layer deeper. If we zoom in on the N3 sleep stage for a moment, we can understand exactly how these brainwave signals are measured in general. Slow waves are not just abstract lines on a graph, they represent massive shifts in cellular voltage. Slow waves, also known as delta waves, are the defining low-frequency rhythms of deep sleep. To understand what they are, you must look at basic neuron polarization. According to physiological principles, a neuron at rest maintains a negative internal charge relative to its outside environment, driven by specific ion gradients. When excitatory inputs occur, the membrane becomes less negative in a process called depolarization, which can trigger an action potential. During deep sleep, large networks of cortical neurons synchronize this activity. They alternate between depolarized up states of active firing and hyperpolarized down states of prolonged silence. This massive synchronized shifting creates the large electrical oscillations that define delta waves captured with EEG. Now, to read these cellular voltage shifts, sleep clinicians rely on highly precise scalp sensors. Electroencephalography measures the electrical activity of the brain by detecting extracellular voltage fluctuations. Small electrodes are placed on the scalp using the standardized International 1020 system, which spaces the sensors proportionally across anatomical landmarks. Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic explain that these electrodes capture the sum changes in electric charge from millions of underlying neurons. The raw signals are measured in microvolts, amplified and filtered to remove noise. Importantly, because delta waves in stage N3 are prominent in the front of the brain, frontal electrode montages are critical for accurate AASM scoring. Now, one major clinical challenge is artifact contamination. Muscle twitches, eye movements, or a loose electrode can easily distort the low-frequency EEG readings. This precise measurement of brain electricity is why formal clinical sleep studies, also referred to as polysomnographies, are the most accurate benchmark for sleep science. You see, polysomnography can be considered the definitive clinical reference test for diagnosing sleep disorders and mapping sleep architecture. The American Thoracic Society explains that polysomnography goes far beyond simple heart rate monitoring. It directly records brain waves via EEG, eye movements via EOG, and muscle tone via EMG. It also tracks respiratory effort, airflow, and blood oxygenation. This comprehensive data allows technicians to apply AASM standards and score sleep accurately in 30-second epochs. A standard polysomnography report provides exact metrics on sleep efficiency, latency, arousals, and precise stage percentages, so it removes the guesswork by directly measuring the physiological markers of sleep rather than inferring them from movement. Now, this is important to know when you look at the advertised sleep metrics reported from wearables brands like Fitbit, Whoop, Apple Watch, and others. Whoop and Fitbit in particular compute their own versions of a sleep score. But now you can understand exactly how they're doing this and how their estimations of sleep quality compare with polysomnography measured sleep. You see, consumer devices do not have access to your brain waves, so they're required to use entirely different methods to estimate your sleep stages. Whoop builds its sleep staging model without any direct measure of brain activity. According to Whoop documentation, the device relies on a 3-axis accelerometer to track movement and a photoplethysmography, or PPG, sensor to track continuous heart rate and heart rate variability. The algorithm uses machine learning models to predict sleep stages based on autonomic nervous system patterns. For example, it estimates deep sleep when heart rate drops and movement ceases, and estimates REM when heart rate variability shifts. The resulting sleep score shown to users combines your sleep duration against a personalized sleep need, while factoring in sleep consistency and the amount of physiological strain your body accumulated during the day. Fitbit operates on a very similar mechanical principle, using wrist-based cardiometrics to guess your sleep architecture. Fitbit estimates your time in awake, light, deep, and REM stages by tracking movement and heart rate dynamics. The Fitbit documentation explains that the device combines accelerometer data with optical heart rate tracking, and in some models, oxygen variation sensors. Because it cannot track EEG spindles or delta waves, it relies primarily on its own machine learning models and algorithms. For instance, prolonged physical stillness paired with a steady, low heart rate triggers the algorithm to log deep sleep. The Fitbit sleep score is then calculated by aggregating your total time asleep, the estimated time spent in restorative stages, and a restoration metric based on your sleeping heart rate and restlessness. It is a mathematical estimation model, not a clinical classification. So, because wearables rely on algorithms rather than electrodes, their accuracy compared to clinical polysomnography has clear limits. The core difference between clinical polysomnography and consumer wearables is direct versus inferred measurement. Polysomnography directly measures the central nervous system via EEG, while wearables measure the autonomic nervous system via wrist-based heart rate. Validation studies published in the sleep literature show that wearables are highly accurate at detecting when you're asleep versus when you're awake. However, they struggle to accurately classify specific sleep stages. A frequent error mode is misclassifying quiet wakefulness as actual sleep, which artificially inflates total sleep time. Wearables provide excellent longitudinal data for tracking consistency and duration over weeks, but they can't replace a polysomnography when accurate detection of exact stage boundaries or respiratory events is required. But that doesn't mean you can't do better than a wearable on your wrist. There are newer devices today using newer technology to measure brainwave activity directly that you can definitely explore. Something I can explore in a separate video. However, what I haven't yet covered is also important to understand what poor sleep quality looks like. Because when these cycles are actually disrupted, the impact on your sleep architecture is stark and measurable. Poor sleep quality is defined clinically by high fragmentation and disrupted stage progression. The American Thoracic Society outlines that poor architecture typically features low sleep efficiency, high sleep latency, and an elevated arousal index. When arousals are frequent, the brain is repeatedly forced out of deep sleep and back into stage N1 or stage W. This prevents the consolidation of N3 slow-wave sleep and fragments the continuous REM episodes needed for cognitive recovery. The Sleep Foundation notes that an overabundance of N1 and a severe lack of N3 are major red flags for unrefreshing sleep. Wearables may flag this as high restlessness or low deep sleep, but only a clinical study can confirm the precise EEG architecture of the disruption. Fortunately, it's worth noting that there are direct, non-device ways to protect your deepest sleep stages and improve your overall architecture. You see, stage N3 and stage REM are the first to suffer when sleep is truncated or disrupted, because N3 dominates the early night and REM dominates the late night. Shortening your sleep window on either end guarantees a deficit. The Sleep Foundation emphasizes that increasing your total sleep opportunity and maintaining a consistent schedule are the most effective ways to protect these stages. You can also consider reducing fragmentation triggers. For example, late caffeine consumption delays sleep onset, while alcohol metabolization actively fragments the later half of the night, suppressing REM. Lastly, proper sleep hygiene, such as maintaining a cool, dark room and finishing intense exercise well before bedtime, supports continuous, uninterrupted cycling and a fully refreshed you in the morning. Understanding the true biological mechanisms of sleep gives you the power to optimize it without relying solely on a wristband score. Protecting your sleep continuity and maintaining a consistent schedule are the strongest levers you have for increasing your slow wave and REM sleep. Wearables are fantastic tools for monitoring your long-term habits, but they are estimations. For now, the best ways to improve your sleep are simple and actionable. If you maintain a consistent sleep schedule and optimize your sleep architecture, you'll likely wake up refreshed every morning. With that, thank you for watching and sweet dreams.